Do you know what hurts more than words? Silence. Especially the kind of silence that comes from someone who no longer begs, who no longer pleads, who no longer feels the need to explain themselves. It's not the absence of sound that wounds. It's the absence of effort, the absence of presence, the absence of acknowledgement. That silence, heavy and deliberate, is born not from indifference, but from exhaustion. It carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken things, of words that were once screamed into voids, of emotions that were once spilled only to be dismissed, of patience that was stretched until it snapped. It's at that exact moment, when you decide to keep quiet, walk away, and stop justifying yourself, that you leave a deep mark on someone who never knew how to value you. Because silence hurts in a different way. It doesn't scream, it doesn't blame, it doesn't beg, but it still says it all. And believe me, those who thought you were weak or replaceable start to hear it when it's too late. Your silence is the sum of everything you swallowed, everything you endured, everything you forgave for a love that was never reciprocated. It is the voice of your dignity, tired of explaining itself. And yes, that absence feels like a real emptiness, because silence leaves people alone with their conscience. No excuses, no screams to cover up the blame, no drama to hide behind. Only the weight of their own mistake. Do you know why silence is so powerful? Because it shows your decision to stop fighting, to stop begging for crumbs, to stop defending the indefensible. It's your way of saying, I'm no longer available to be anyone's bedside, the occasional refuge, the backup plan. And that hurts. Because suddenly, they face the truth. They lost you, not because you stopped loving, but because they never knew how to give you what you deserved. As Carl Jung said, those who don't face their shadow project their emotional garbage onto others, and without realizing it, you became the container for what they couldn't handle, their guilt, their lack, their frustration, until one day you simply wake up and choose silence. And no, it's not weakness, nor indifference, it's the purest form of your healing. Because those who have healed no longer argue, plead, cry, or beg. They just leave, and that's when your silence begins to resonate in their soul. They wonder, why don't you respond anymore? Why are you no longer here? And that emptiness weighs more than any argument. Because silence cannot be twisted, cannot be manipulated, cannot be denied. Silence becomes a brutal mirror that forces others to confront their own flaws. The person who failed to value you will remember every word you said, but above all, they will remember the moment you stopped saying them. Because when someone gets used to you always being there, to you responding, to you sustaining their chaos, it hurts them deeply to discover you are no longer available. There is no harsher punishment for an immature ego than having no one to blame, no one to vent their frustration on. Your silence breaks their comfort zone. And here's the important thing. Your silence is your strongest cry for dignity. Not everything needs to be explained. Not everything is healed with words. Some wounds only heal when you walk away. Some people only begin to value your presence when they face your absence. And no, it's not revenge. It's a consequence. That of not being heard, not being seen, not being respected when you gave your all. As Hong said, what is not consciously realized is experienced as destiny. And sooner or later, that person will face the destiny created by their own lack. I know that silence hurts. That many times you wanted to scream everything you felt, all the anger you held in, all the times you were broken. But when you choose silence from a place of self-love, not fear, something powerful happens. You regain your peace, your center, your strength. Silence, when well chosen, is medicine. It's the exact distance needed to heal without allowing unclean hands to touch your wound again. And while you heal in silence, they face their own hell, because there are no more screams, no excuses, no mind games. Only their conscience remains, and no one escapes it. So, if you ever doubt whether you did the right thing by remaining silent, remember, it's not your job to teach those who don't want to learn, nor to heal those who refuse to see their pain, nor to save those who don't want to be saved. Your only duty is to yourself, to protect yourself, prioritize yourself, and take care of yourself. And sometimes, that's only achieved by silently walking away, letting the other person face the consequences of their selfishness. They may try to provoke you, send you excuses, accuse you of being cold. Don't fall for it. Your silence says you're done accepting less than you deserve. Because if you give in, they'll play with your mind again, repeat their patterns, and diminish your dignity once again. Remember, someone who truly loves you will never push you into silence. Someone who truly cares for you won't push your patience to the limit until it breaks. And someone who truly values you will never make you feel like walking away is the only option. So if today you're withdrawing, keeping silent, distancing yourself, don't feel guilty. You're doing the right thing. You're giving that person the only real chance to understand what it means to lose you. Not everyone knows how to lose. Some grew up believing you'd always be there. That's why your silence hurts so much, because for the first time, they understand that you weren't unconditional, that you weren't going to tolerate everything forever. They see that you know how to leave, close the door, choose you. And believe me, that kind of silence leaves a much deeper mark than any words spoken in anger. Someone once said that the unconscious only awakens after a hard blow, one that breaks autopilot and forces us to look inward. Your silence is that blow. It's the jolt that confronts the other with their shadow. And although it hurts to see it, perhaps it's the best thing that could have happened. No one truly changes as long as someone continues to hold on to their hopes. So today, I want to invite you to feel proud of your silence. It's not coldness, it's not weakness, it's strength. It's the courage to let go of what no longer does you any good. It's wisdom, knowing that not everything deserves your voice, your energy, or your presence. There are people who only learn when they lose the privilege of having you around. And this is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll go deeper. How to sustain your silence without guilt, how not to give in to provocation, and how to turn it into your most powerful tool of self-love. This isn't punishment, it's healing. It's closing cycles with dignity. It's choosing yourself, even if it leaves a void, in those who didn't know how to take care of you. Don't miss what's coming next. We're going to touch places in you that you didn't even know were there. This is just the beginning. And before we continue, tell me, where are you watching us from? I'd love to see how far this beautiful community of self-love and dignity can go. So now, let's go deeper. Silence holds a power we often overlook. It's not just the absence of words. It's a boundary. It's a space. It's an act of self-preservation. When you choose silence with someone who failed to appreciate you, you're delivering the clearest, most powerful message you possibly can. I'm no longer available for the same old patterns. That silence becomes a wall that shields your mental peace. It says, enough without aggression, It marks an ending without drama. People aren't used to losing your voice. They're so sure you'll always reply, always explain, always justify. So when you decide not to say a word, it disrupts their entire power game. They feel unarmed, exposed, even desperate because silence offers no material for argument, no fuel to keep their lies spinning, no hooks to manipulate your empathy. Silence can't be twisted. There's no argument against emptiness. The one who failed to value you begins to feel the intensity of your absence in a way they never expected. They start to remember everything you gave, everything you held up, everything you offered, and it hurts, even if they'll never admit it. Ego will always pretend it doesn't care, but the conscience, it screams, especially when nothing is left to distract it. That's why your silence cuts so deep. It forces them to finally hear themselves. At first, it might feel strange for you too. You've been so used to talking, explaining, trying to fix things, that keeping quiet feels like going against your nature. But I want you to remember this. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone is worthy of your voice. You've given so much, repeated yourself so many times, and if they still don't value you after all of that, there's nothing left to say. The one who didn't hear you when you were screaming won't hear you now. Your silence, when held with intention, is more powerful than any speech. It's proof that you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. That's self-love in its purest form. Carl Jung once said, "When you stop projecting, you start healing, and silence interrupts the projection. It brings you back to yourself. It shows you where your energy was going, and it invites you to pull it back in. That's where your true freedom begins. You'll notice that the moment you go quiet, the other person will do everything possible to provoke you. They'll reach out, send messages, try to press your buttons, try to make you feel guilty because they can't stand the emptiness. Your silence is screaming inside them now. They've lost control. That's the exact moment where you must stand your ground. Don't respond from pain. Don't respond from longing. Every word you give them now opens a door for them to hurt you again. I promise you, if you can resist that first impulse to break the silence, you'll feel a kind of peace you may not have known in years. The peace of someone who no longer self-betrays, who no longer begs, who no longer submits. Silence becomes your refuge, your sacred space, where no one else can touch you. And that's not pride, nor revenge, it's self-care. It's healing from a distance. I know it might hurt to think they'll forget you, that silence could mean losing them forever, but I want you to face the truth. Someone who truly loved you would never have forced you into silence. Someone who genuinely respected you wouldn't have pushed you to your limit. So if they walk away for good, it's because they never had the ability to truly value your essence. And that's not a loss, it's a relief. Because you weren't born to be anyone's solution. You were born to share your life with someone who sees your worth with no conditions. As you remain silent, you'll start discovering parts of yourself you hadn't noticed before. You'll realize how many times you gave in out of fear, how many times you spoke just to keep the peace, how many times you tried to hold together what was already falling apart. That kind of realization is pure gold. It gives you your power back. It reminds you that you don't have to sacrifice your inner voice to maintain a relationship that never brought you peace. And as strange as it may sound, your silence will bring deep changes to the person who never knew how to value you. At first, there will be anger. There will be excuses. There will be denial. But with time, when they no longer have a reason to blame you, they'll start confronting their own mistakes. Maybe they won't change. Maybe they won't apologize. But the seed of awareness will have already been planted. And that is enough to close the chapter with dignity. Jung said, "Awareness hurts, and your silence is the shortest path for someone to meet their awareness, without distractions, without your explanations, without justifications, only the plain truth of their own emptiness." That process, even if it doesn't look like it, is healing. Because no one changes from comfort, they only change when the pain becomes unbearable. I want you to find the strength to hold on to your silence, even if it hurts, even if they blame you, even if they say you're being cold. Deep down, you know you're not being cruel. You're healing. You're setting boundaries. Without saying a word, you're showing that those who don't take care of you lose you. And that is a lesson that will live in their memory forever. Meanwhile, I want you to make yourself a promise. Don't use your silence as a weapon. Use it as a medicine, not to punish, but to protect yourself, to close old wounds, to rebuild your self-love, to hear yourself again without interference. Because only in that way will you be able to connect again from a place that's healthy, clean, free of resentment or emotional chains. In the next part, we'll go deeper into something essential. How do you rebuild your self-esteem while remaining silent? How do you avoid falling into the trap of returning to a place where you already know there's no love left? And how do you turn this silence into a true new beginning, not just a pause? Because you deserve to move forward with your head held high, knowing you didn't stay where you weren't respected. Don't go yet, because what comes next will be even more liberating and profound. We're going to name emotions you may have never dared to face. This is just beginning, and together we're going to come out stronger. But before we continue, I want to recommend something that might deeply transform the way you're living through this process. Being silent doesn't mean you're empty. Quite the opposite. Your silence is full of meaning, full of everything left unsaid, full of everything you refuse to repeat. And when you learn to stay peaceful within that silence, you become invulnerable. Because nothing hits harder than seeing that the person who once begged is no longer pleading, no longer asking, no longer chasing. That serenity dismantles any form of manipulation. It breaks it into 1,000 pieces. Because while you're in peace, the other person twists in their own chaos. Sooner or later, someone who didn't value you will feel the full impact of that calm, steady, unwavering silence. A silence that no longer waits, that doesn't pursue, that doesn't search. It's the silence of someone who chose themselves. And that is the biggest blow to the ego of someone who got used to your constant availability. You'll notice that many will try to provoke you, just to break your calm. They'll try to pull you off balance, hoping you'll snap, scream, react, because that gives them the comfort of knowing they still have power over you, that they still own your emotions. But when your silence is born from serenity, from the certainty that there's nothing more to give, there's no scream loud enough to shake you. And that's admirable. That's real strength. Please remember this. Serenity is not surrender. It's not giving up. It is the highest expression of acceptance. It means knowing you did all you could, that you loved as deeply as you knew how, that you gave your best, and that it is no longer your responsibility to save someone who refused to save themselves alongside you. It's hard, I know. It's hard to look at the emptiness left behind when you step away. It's hard to fall asleep in the quiet when you used to lie awake trying to fix everything. But in that space, in that silence, in that stillness, the chance to rebuild yourself is born. A chance to reconnect, to return to who you truly are. Because when there are no more screams, no more excuses, no more hollow words, the deepest truth finally appears. You deserve peace. And let me tell you this, when you nurture that peace inside you, nothing and no one can ever steal it again. The one who failed to value you will feel a terrible emptiness, and you'll feel immense relief. Not because you've become cold or indifferent, but because you finally stopped sacrificing yourself. You finally understood that someone who doesn't appreciate your presence doesn't deserve your words. As you maintain this silence, I want you to focus on strengthening your self-worth. Think about everything you bring, everything you gave, every small act of love that went unreciprocated, not to feel like a victim, but to remind yourself that your love was real, your intentions were pure, and your effort was honest. That holds immense value. And if someone didn't know how to receive that, they simply weren't on your level. Stay silent, yes, but also rebuild. Take care of yourself. Heal the wounds that hurt so deeply. Look after your body, your mind, your spirit. Find things that reconnect you with yourself. Learn to be alone without feeling lonely. Read, meditate, walk, breathe. Make your silence a sacred place, not a dark hole. That's why I keep recommending the art of serenity. It's such a powerful tool for filling silence with light, with calm, with purpose. I'll leave the link below for you to check it out. Don't let the moment pass. You'll start noticing how your energy shifts bit by bit. You'll begin to release your need for others' approval. You'll start to value your own silence as the best protection for your peace. And when you reach that place, when you stand firm in serenity, no one can shake you. No one can toy with your emotions again. Because there are no longer open doors for manipulation. It's very likely that memories, ghosts, or nostalgia will show up in your silence. That's normal. Whenever we distance ourselves from someone who once meant a lot, the brain sabotages us with memories of good times. But don't forget why you got here. Don't forget the tears, the neglect, the disrespect. Don't romanticize someone who hurt you. Your silence is the border between your broken past and your peaceful future. Don't cross back. There will be days when you feel like sending a message, explaining once more, asking for closure. And I want you to remember, that person won't give you real closure. The real closure is yours when you decide not to return, when you put yourself first, when you choose peace over chaos. That's where the story truly ends. That's when real healing begins. Carl Jung once said, "What we do not resolve within ourselves, we repeat outside of ourselves." If you don't heal your fear of being alone, you'll run back to someone who didn't value you. That's why your silence must come with commitment, to work on yourself, to face your wounds, to forgive yourself for enduring so much, and to understand that you deserve better. That's how you break the cycle. Today, I want to invite you to use this silence as the gateway into a new chapter. A chapter where you no longer settle for half-hearted love, where you don't tolerate disrespect, where you no longer beg for attention. A chapter where you own your peace, guard your serenity, and protect your heart. The one who failed to value you will feel your absence, will hear the echo of your quiet voice. They'll wonder 1,000 times what they did wrong. And that's the best lesson. Not to hurt them, but maybe, just maybe, so they wake up one day. And if they don't, that's not your burden. You've already played your part. You gave your best. You tried everything. Now it's time to think of you. Hold your silence. Talk to yourself. Listen to your thoughts. Embrace your emotions. And when nostalgia makes your soul tremble, remind yourself of this. Anyone who truly values you would never silence your voice. Anyone who truly loves you would never make you feel so small that silence becomes your only shield. What follows this process is beautiful, even if you can't see it yet. What's coming is your rebuilding, your healing, your transformation into a new version of yourself, stronger, freer, more aware, a version that will never again give away its voice to someone who doesn't deserve it. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how to use this quiet phase to grow, to be reborn, to rise more powerful than ever. Don't miss what's coming next, because it will be your guide to turning pain into unstoppable strength. Thank you for being here, and remember, the art of serenity can walk beside you. Don't stop investing in yourself. Let's keep going. There's a moment when silence becomes your only shelter, a place where there's no more noise, no more yelling, no more excuses. It's just you and your own conscience. And that can be terrifying, because silence forces you to look at yourself without masks, to face your wounds, to see the shadows you've tried to hide. But that moment is sacred, because that's when the real rebuilding begins, when you no longer feel the need to explain to anyone why you left, when you're done convincing people you deserve to be loved, when you no longer beg to be understood. You reclaim a profound power, the power of being with yourself, the power of being enough for you without needing anyone's approval. That is the real treasure that rises from silence, when you learn to hold it gently. Those who fail to value you will feel that silence like a chasm. They'll face themselves in the mirror and confront everything you used to soothe with your presence. Because your company was their relief, your voice, their comfort, your patience, their remedy. And when all of that disappears, they're left with the full weight of their own emptiness. And even if they never admit it, that's unbearable for many. There's nothing more uncomfortable for someone who refuses to take responsibility than having to live with the consequences of their actions without distractions. Your silence forces them to face the loneliness they created, to realize they lost someone who truly loved them. And no matter how they try to cover it up, no matter how they accuse you of being heartless, no matter how they twist the blame, deep down, they know. They know they won't get you back this time. That's when your silence becomes a lesson. Not a punishment, but a result. A result of not listening, not caring, not cherishing. And those consequences hit the hardest, because they don't come from anger or revenge. They come from self-respect, from dignity, from your right to peace. And no one can argue with that, because it doesn't shout, it doesn't plead, it simply stands there, solid, unwavering, like a wall you no longer wish to break. Over time, that silence begins to change colors inside you. At first it's gray, heavy with pain, full of memories and nostalgia. But as days go by, it becomes brighter, cleaner, healing. You start to feel relief. You regain your energy, and you begin to hear your inner voice again, the one that was buried under endless arguments, justifications, and desperate efforts to save what could not be saved. That's the gift of your silence. It gives you back your ability to hear yourself, to feel yourself, to choose yourself. Because in the absence of unnecessary words, the true connection with your being begins to bloom. And there, slowly but firmly, you begin to rebuild. You start remembering who you were before giving so much. You start recognizing your worth without needing anyone else to confirm it. Meanwhile, the other person is left with the echo of your absence. They'll remember your gestures, your little details, your words, all the things they once ignored, dismissed, or took for granted. And each of those memories will pierce like a blade, because they'll know you won't be repeating them. That certainty will be devastating for someone who believed you'd always be available. But this is not about celebrating their pain. It's not about wishing them suffering. It's about accepting that sometimes only through loss can someone truly understand who you were and all that you gave. Because while you were there, their mind couldn't see. Only in your absence does their heart awaken. And as harsh as it may sound, sometimes that's how life works. Silence, when it rises from self-love, teaches far more than any angry word, because you can't manipulate it, you can't argue with it, and you can't ignore it. It stays there, still quiet, present, day after day, like a reminder that this time there's no turning back. And even if they try to reach you, even if they want to reconnect, even if they attempt to reopen conversations, you are no longer the same, because silence has changed you. You are no longer the one who begged for answers, who forgave too quickly, who endured indifference. Now you are someone who honors themselves, who protects their peace, who stands firm in self-respect. That kind of change is irreversible. You might still feel some nostalgia, and for some, remembering might still hurt. But you wouldn't go back. You wouldn't return to the place where you had to betray your dignity, because now you've learned the most valuable lesson of all. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Carl Jung once said that a human being only truly meets themselves when they're able to be alone, in silence, without masks, without distorted mirrors, without the noise of other voices. That's when the truth finally surfaces. That's where you discover what you actually need, what you truly deserve, and most importantly, what you'll never again be willing to tolerate. When you learn how to hold that space, everything in your life begins to shift. You start to attract different people, healthier situations, more honest and meaningful relationships, because your energy begins to vibrate higher. And suddenly, you no longer fit into the same pain you once called home. And that right there is magic. Even if it feels terrifying at first, your silence becomes a filter. It pushes away those who aren't ready to grow and invites in those who are capable of loving you with respect, with consciousness, with true reciprocity. That's why you shouldn't fear it. You should welcome it, inhabit it, turn it into your companion, because only through silence does real transformation begin to bloom. Some people will say your silence is cold, that it's pride, that it's cowardice. Don't listen to those voices. They speak from their own wounds, not from truth. Silence born from your dignity doesn't destroy, it heals. It doesn't hurt, it protects. It doesn't punish, it teaches. And whoever truly loves you will eventually understand that if you chose silence, it's only because you had already screamed too much, begged too often, and given everything without ever being truly seen. That's the soul's clearest language. When your silence is rooted in love and not in hate, you'll realize it doesn't feel so heavy. It doesn't drag you down, doesn't hurt anymore. On the contrary, it becomes lighter, almost freeing, because you're no longer carrying words on your lips that were never heard. You're no longer wasting energy trying to convince. You're no longer tearing yourself apart in the name of love. You've become someone who knows when to walk away, someone who understands that love should never hurt, that companionship shouldn't exhaust you, and that attention should never have to be begged for. And right there, in that very understanding, your real healing begins. In the next part, we'll take the final step, how to turn that silence into your new way of life, forever. How to use it as a door to the most authentic form of self-love, and how to rebuild a future without falling back into the same old patterns. This journey doesn't end here. I can promise you that what's coming will be the greatest revelation of all. When everything goes quiet and the echo of your words disappears, the real test begins. That's when your silence becomes not just a temporary strategy, but a new way of being, because you've learned that you can't keep offering your voice to those who refuse to hear it. You can't keep sharing your energy with those who don't know how to hold it. And in that moment, you finally realize you've been reborn. That rebirth is painful because it demands farewells to people, to illusions, to shared dreams, even to the image you built of someone. Letting go hurts. Accepting hurts. Closing the door hurts. But the pain of endings is far more healing than the endless suffering of staying somewhere you were never valued. Slowly, that silence stops being an emergency shelter and becomes your natural home. You learn to live in it without anxiety, without needing validation, without waiting for answers that might never come. That's where true self-love blossoms, because you no longer rely on anything outside of you to feel whole. And as you walk this new path, you begin to notice the signs you once ignored. You begin to see who's truly willing to be in your life without hurting you. You start to recognize who truly values your essence, your presence, your light. You become more selective, more conscious, more intentional, because pain and tears have taught you that not everyone deserves your closeness. And that's a lesson you'll never forget. Those who failed to value you will feel your absence. Maybe they'll reach out. Maybe they'll try to explain everything away. Maybe they'll try to rewrite the past just to avoid guilt. And that's exactly when you must stay firm, because if you reopen that door without any real change, you'll only fall into the same cycle again. And this time, there's no excuse for lying to yourself. You already know how that story ends. Silence, in the end, isn't just what remains after unrequited love. It becomes the beginning of something much deeper, the love you owe yourself. Because respect isn't demanded, it's chosen. And when it chooses to respect you, when it protects your energy, the universe notices. New paths open, new people arrive, and healthier experiences emerge because you now vibrate from dignity, not from lack. Carl Jung said that everything we don't bring to consciousness returns as destiny. That's why silence has so much power. It breaks the cycle. It forces you to face what you buried, your fears, your wounds, your attachments, and once you see them clearly, you can no longer ignore them. That truth, even if it hurts, is what sets you free. And yes, in that freedom, there is loneliness, but not a kind that hurts, but a kind that heals. Because you are finally not surrounded by the wrong people. You are finally not sharing your life with someone who doesn't know how to sustain it. You are no longer begging for love. In that silence, you rebuild yourself, you rediscover yourself, and you emerge stronger. One day, you will look back and be grateful for that silence. You will be grateful for every tear, every sleepless night, every thought that led you to choose calm over chaos. Because without that break, you would still be tied to something that only drained you. You would still be waiting for something that would never come. The ghosts will return. The memories will knock on your door. And sometimes the longing will make itself felt. But now you have armor, your dignity. Every time you feel the urge to go back, to explain yourself, to give in, you will remember the hurt, the tiredness, the emptiness, and that will be enough to sustain you. They say silence destroys. I believe silence heals. It tears down the false, the forced, the manipulated, and leaves only what is real. And yes, the truth can hurt, but it's better to feel its sting than to live a happiness built on lies. Your silence today screams loudly, I choose me. It says, I won't negotiate my dignity again. It says, I've learned. And even if not everyone understands, even if they judge you or call you cold, it doesn't matter, because only you know what it took to get here. Never forget, those who truly love you will never ask you to be quiet so as not to upset them. Those who truly value you will never push you to set painful boundaries. If you ended up silent, it was because there was no other way, and that is the truth the other person will have to face, even in grief. From now on, let silence be a healthy way of living, not to shut yourself off from the world, but to protect your inner world. Not to punish, but to protect you. To make sure you never betray your voice again. To never give it away to someone who refuses to hear it. And if one day you speak again, let it be with someone who knows how to listen, who values your story, who sees beauty in your scars, who is worthy of your love. You were not born to beg for attention, but to share yourself completely with someone capable of holding you in the truth. This silence will remain in the heart of those who didn't know how to value you, like a mark, like an echo, that will remind you that someone loved you unconditionally and that you lost that love due to your own blindness. You, on the other hand, will move forward lighter, stronger, more aware, because now you know that self-love is also said with a goodbye. And when you love again, because you will, it will be from a different place, with less fear, more clarity, and the firm certainty that no one will ever silence you, shut you down, or make you feel like you're not enough again. Thus ends this journey, without shouting or reproaches, only with the peace that comes from choosing silence to care for your heart. Because silence sometimes isn't emptiness, but presence, that of your self-love, your dignity, your courage. This is the beginning of something new. Even if everything seems uncertain today, trust. Soon you will see that this silence was the bridge to your freedom. And that, believe me, is worth 1,000 words. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss any content. See you in the next video. One realizes that suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from how we interpret it. If today you are in pain, there is something you must understand immediately. Suffering is not caused by events, but by the way your mind processes them. Two people can experience the exact same situation. One falls into despair, while the other uses it as a stepping stone to grow. What makes the difference? Perception. Carl Jung explained it clearly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This means that many times we do not suffer because of what happens, but because of the unconscious meanings we attach to every situation. What hurts you the most is not reality itself, but the story you tell yourself about it. Your mind holds an invisible power, shaping the way you experience the world. The question is, are you using this power to create peace or suffering? Think about this. If someone rejects you, there are two ways to see it. One way is to interpret it as, this means I am not good enough, that I will never be loved, that I will always be abandoned. The other way is, this simply means this person was not meant for me, and now I have space for someone who will truly value me. Do you see the difference? The exact same event, two completely opposite interpretations. One leads to suffering, the other to liberation. The way you interpret reality defines how much pain you will feel. But here's the real issue. Most people interpret their experiences through the lens of their deepest wounds. If you carry unresolved abandonment, you will see rejection everywhere. If you struggle with insecurity, you will perceive attacks where there are none. Your perception is distorted by what remains unhealed within you. You do not suffer because of what happens. You suffer because of what it means to you. Imagine losing your job. One person might see it as the end of the world. Another might see it as an opportunity for something better. The difference is not in the event itself, but in the interpretation of it. When you believe that everything is a tragedy, your life becomes a series of endless misfortunes. But when you believe that everything carries a lesson, your life transforms into a journey of constant growth. How do you start changing the way you interpret reality? Every time something causes you pain, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? Is it really as bad as I think? Am I exaggerating the impact of this situation? Can I view this experience from another perspective? Find the lesson hidden within the pain. Jung said that what hurts us the most is often what we need to learn the most. If something is making you suffer, ask yourself, what is this experience teaching me about myself? Develop the ability of cognitive restructuring. Every time you interpret something negatively, force your mind to search for a new perspective. Instead of thinking, this is the worst thing that could have happened, try saying, this is exactly what I needed to wake up. Stop taking everything personally. Most suffering comes from taking things too seriously. Not everything is an attack. Not everything is a rejection. Not everything is a sign that you are not enough. Break the habit of demanding immediate meaning from everything. Many times, suffering is just resistance to the unknown. We want to understand why something happened right away, and in our obsession to find answers, we drain ourselves. Some things only make sense when you look back. Practice external observation. Imagine that your life is a movie, and you are just watching the story unfold, detached from emotions. When you separate yourself from suffering and observe it from a distance, you realize that everything is temporary, and that in the end, you decide how much weight to give each situation. The moment suffering stops controlling you is the moment you begin to apply this shift in perspective. Something powerful happens. You stop being a victim of your own mind. You no longer take criticism to heart. You no longer feel like every loss is the end of the world. You begin to see challenges as opportunities rather than punishments. And here is the key. When you understand that suffering is a mental construct, you gain the ability to break free from it. But there's more. The deepest root of suffering is attachment to things, to people, to expectations. And in the next step, I will show you how to break free from this attachment so that you will never again be a prisoner of pain. The second step, break free from attachment to what you cannot control. If there is one thing that keeps people trapped in suffering, it is their need to control the uncontrollable. You want others to act as you expect them to. You want things to unfold exactly as you planned. You want life to align perfectly with your expectations. But here is the raw truth. Life owes you nothing. The sooner you accept this, the the sooner you will free yourself from suffering. Carl Jung spoke about how attachment is the root of human suffering. We cling to people, situations, and ideas, and when reality does not align with our desires, we feel pain. But this pain does not come from life itself. It comes from our resistance to accepting it as it is. The first truth is this: the more you try to control, the more you suffer. Look at your own life. How many times have you tried to change someone, only to be frustrated because they remained the same? How many times have you made a plan, and when things didn't go as expected, you were consumed by anxiety? Suffering does not come from the event itself. It comes from your struggle against what is. People do not change because you want them to. They change when they decide to. Things don't always go according to plan, but that doesn't mean they can't turn out even better. Uncertainty is a natural part of life. The more you resist it, the more it will hurt. Accept that you do not have control over everything. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much you plan, there will always be things beyond your control. Instead of resisting, learn to flow with whatever comes your way. Identify what you can control. You cannot control other people, but you can control how you respond to them. You cannot control every situation, but you can control how you interpret it. Invest your energy in what depends on you, and let go of what doesn't. Learn to let go without fear. Many times, we hold on to things because we believe we need them to be happy. But true happiness does not depend on anything external. When you learn to be at peace without clinging to anything, you become unshakable. Stop living in expectations and start living in acceptance. Rigid expectations create frustration. Instead of expecting things to happen in a certain way, accept what comes and adapt. This does not mean giving up. It means trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. When you stop forcing life, it flows more naturally. Understand that everything is temporary. What hurts you today will be a memory tomorrow. What seems impossible now may not even matter in a few months. Suffering thrives on the illusion of permanence, but nothing in life is eternal. Here's a powerful exercise. Make a list of everything that worries you right now. Then, divide it into 2 columns: what you can control and what you cannot. You will realize that most of your worries fall into the second column. Now, commit to letting go of what you cannot change. When you release control, something powerful happens. Your anxiety decreases. You no longer waste energy worrying about things that are beyond your reach. You feel lighter because the weight of frustration disappears. You are no longer fighting against reality. And surprisingly, things start to fall into place naturally because instead of forcing, you allow life to flow. Try this 1-week challenge. Every time something doesn't go as planned, instead of resisting, say out loud, "This is what it is. I accept it and move forward." Whenever you feel the urge to control someone, remind yourself that each person has their own journey. Focus on yours. Make a list of the things you're clinging to and ask yourself, what would happen if I simply let them go? Each night, reflect. How free was I today from the need to control? As you practice this, you will notice that life becomes much lighter. Not because everything is perfect, but because you have finally stopped fighting against the inevitable. But here's something even deeper. Letting go of external attachments is not enough. You must also learn to manage what happens inside you. Because if you do not master your emotions, you will continue to suffer no matter how much you try to control everything else. And that is what we will discuss next. how to master your emotions instead of letting them control you. Suffering does not only come from external events, but from how you handle what happens within you. Your emotions can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. If you do not learn to control them, they will control you. They will make you react impulsively and keep you trapped in cycles of pain. But if you master them, you will become unbreakable. Carl Jung spoke about the shadow, that hidden part of yourself that you repress because society taught you it was unacceptable. But when you ignore your shadow, it doesn't disappear. It becomes your jailer. It controls you from the depths of your unconscious, making you react with uncontrollable anger, paralyzing fear, or deep sadness. However, when you integrate it and understand it, you stop being a victim of your own emotions. You realize that you are not your emotions. You are the one who observes them. Imagine being in the middle of a stormy sea. The waves represent your emotions. If you let yourself be carried away, you will drown. But if you learn to surf, you will move with them without being overwhelmed. That is the power of emotional mastery. Anxiety is not the problem. The problem is your resistance to feeling it. Fear is not the enemy. Your interpretation of it is. Sadness is not the end. It is a signal that something in your life needs attention. To stop being a slave to your emotions, the first step is to observe them without identifying with them. When you feel anxiety, fear, or anger, don't react immediately. Instead, pause and observe. Tell yourself, I am feeling this, but I am not this. The moment you separate yourself from the emotion, you take back control. Instead of being carried away by the emotional storm, ask yourself questions. Where is this emotion really coming from? Is it as serious as it seems? What would happen if I didn't react immediately? Your brain is programmed to react based on past experiences, but the truth is that most emotions are not caused by what is happening now, but by what the situation reminds you of from your past. Change your internal dialogue. The words you use to talk to yourself shape the intensity of what you feel. Instead of saying, I can't handle this, tell yourself, this is temporary, and I can manage it. The way you frame your experiences defines your suffering. Find the root of your emotions instead of just treating the symptoms. If something repeatedly causes you pain, the problem is not the situation itself, but what it represents to you. Jung said that true growth happens when we confront what we avoid. Ask yourself, what past wound is being triggered by this emotion? Often, what hurts us in the present is a reflection of something unresolved in the past. Learn to use conscious breathing to take control of your emotions. You cannot think clearly if your body is in survival mode. Before reacting, take a deep breath. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and exhale for 6. This sends a signal to your brain that there is no real danger, helping you regain clarity. Another powerful technique is writing down your emotions before reacting. Instead of acting impulsively, write down what you're feeling. Sometimes, when we see our emotions on paper, we realize they are not as overwhelming as they seemed in our minds. Emotions are energy in motion, and if you don't channel them, they get trapped inside you, turning into suffering. If you feel anger, use it to exercise. If you feel anxiety, take a walk. If you feel sadness, write or create something. Don't let your emotions accumulate without direction. If you truly want to master your emotions, try this for 1 week. Every time you feel a strong emotion, write down what triggered it, how you reacted, and how you could have responded differently. Before reacting to someone, count to 10 and breathe deeply. If after that you still feel the same way, then decide how to act. When a negative emotion arises, name it. This is fear. This is frustration. This is anger. Naming your emotions reduces their power over you. Practicing daily gratitude also helps shift your focus away from suffering. Even in difficult moments, acknowledging something positive rewires your brain to see beyond the immediate pain. When you learn to manage your emotions instead of letting them control you, people lose the power to manipulate you. Problems no longer overwhelm you in the same way. Your mind becomes clearer, and your decisions become more strategic. You experience peace even in the midst of chaos. But there is something even more powerful than mastering your emotions. You must also stop seeing yourself as a victim of the world. Suffering persists when you cling to the belief that life owes you something, that the world is unfair to you, or that circumstances are against you. This mindset keeps you trapped in a prison of your own making, preventing you from moving forward. And that is exactly what we will explore next: how to break free from the victim identity and take full control of your life. Carl Jung spoke about the importance of personal responsibility. The moment you stop blaming others and take control of your life is the moment you truly begin to free yourself from suffering. There is something many people don't want to hear. No one is coming to save you. And while this may sound harsh at first, it is actually a blessing. Because the moment you understand that the power lies within you, you stop depending on external factors to change your life. You no longer need someone else to rescue you, because you can become the person you've been looking for. Fact number 1. No one is coming to save you, and that is a blessing. Waiting for someone to rescue you, for fate to change in your favor, or for things to magically fall into place, is an illusion that only prolongs your suffering. It's not that the world is against you, but as long as you wait for something external to change in order to feel better, you will remain trapped in frustration. The key is to understand that no one is obligated to give you happiness except yourself. The victim mentality is fueled by 3 main beliefs. I have no control over my life. This belief makes you think your destiny is in the hands of others, or mere luck. The world is unfair to me. This thought convinces you that life owes you something, and that you are stuck in a never-ending streak of bad luck. I need others to recognize or help me. Depending on external approval to feel valuable or to move forward keeps you powerless. But if you look at people who have transformed their lives, they all share one thing in common. At some point, they stopped waiting and started acting. They didn't cling to the idea that the world owed them something. Instead, they took control and became the protagonists of their own story. How to break the victim identity. Change your internal narrative. Pay attention to how you talk about your life. Do you say things like, "This always happens to me," "I never have any luck," or "People always let me down"? These statements reinforce the idea that you have no power. Change your dialogue to, "I choose how to respond to this. I have the ability to change my situation. My past does not define my future." The way you describe your reality determines how you experience it. Identify where you feel powerless. Ask yourself, in what areas of my life do I feel stuck? What situations do I keep repeating? What do I constantly complain about? The answers to these questions will show you where you have adopted the victim role. Take responsibility for what you can control. You can't control others, but you can control how you respond. You can't change the past, but you can decide what to do with it. You can't prevent every obstacle, but you can decide whether you define yourself by your struggles or by how you overcome them. The key is to take ownership of your life instead of waiting for someone else to fix it for you. Challenge your need for external validation. Many times, we suffer because we expect recognition or fairness from others. But the world is not always fair. Instead of waiting for others to validate your pain or efforts, focus on what you can do for yourself. When you stop depending on external approval, you become truly free. Take immediate action, no matter how small. The first step to breaking free from the victim mentality is proving to yourself that you have control. It could be something small, changing a routine, learning something new, making a decision you've been avoiding. The important thing is to act. Stop looking for excuses and start looking for solutions. Every time you feel like something is holding you back, ask yourself, is this really an insurmountable obstacle, or is it just an excuse preventing me from moving forward? More often than not, the problem is not the situation itself, but the story we tell ourselves about it. Practical exercise to break the victim mindset. For 1 week, do this. Write down 3 areas where you feel like a victim. Write down how you could take control in each situation. Act on at least one of them. It doesn't have to be something big. The key is to prove to yourself that you have the power to change it. The result of taking control of your life. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim and take responsibility for your destiny, you feel more empowered and at peace. Your relationships improve because you no longer depend on others for your happiness. You face challenges with greater resilience. Suffering decreases because you focus on solutions instead of complaints. But there is something even more powerful. When you find a purpose greater than your pain, suffering stops consuming your life. Find a purpose greater than your pain. Suffering is inevitable in life, but there is a reason why some people seem to endure it with more strength than others. They have a purpose that gives meaning to everything. When you lack a clear purpose, any obstacle feels unbearable. But when you find something that transcends your pain, suffering stops being a punishment and becomes a teacher. Carl Jung spoke of self-realization as the process of integrating all aspects of our being. According to him, suffering is not something to be avoided at all costs, but rather a signal that there is something within us that needs to be understood, worked through, and transformed. The goal is not to eliminate pain from life, but to use it as fuel to become stronger and wiser. Think about someone you admire for their strength. Most resilient individuals have gone through difficult times, yet instead of letting suffering define them, they used it as a catalyst for growth. They found something that gave them a reason to keep moving forward, something that allowed them to find meaning in their experiences. This does not mean that you should romanticize suffering or seek it out intentionally, but rather understand that behind every challenge there is an opportunity for growth. If pain seems overwhelming, ask yourself key questions. How can I use this suffering to learn something about myself? In what areas of my life is this pain pushing me to grow? How can I transform this experience into something that helps others? When you find a purpose greater than your pain, suffering stops being a sentence and becomes a challenge. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start recognizing yourself as someone with the power to transform their own life. Jung spoke of the process of individuation, which is about becoming the person you are truly meant to be. A crucial part of this journey is discovering a purpose that gives meaning to your existence. To achieve this, identify what ignites your passion and ask yourself what activities make you lose track of time and when you feel most alive. The key lies in what energizes you, rather than drains you. Many times, our purpose is connected to our wounds. Those who have suffered abandonment may find meaning in helping others heal. Those who have overcome extreme difficulties can inspire people going through similar struggles. You don't need to have everything figured out from the start. The important thing is to take action. If something calls to you, explore it, read about it, practice it, and get involved step by step. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. If you want to find your purpose, avoid those who focus only on complaining and suffering. Seek out people who have already found meaning in their lives and learn from them. Accept that purpose evolves. What drives you today may not be the same in the future. Be flexible and allow your purpose to transform over time. Jung believed that the true meaning of life is not found in avoiding pain, but in finding a reason strong enough to endure it. Self-realization is not a fixed destination, but a lifelong journey of continuous evolution. When you find something greater than your suffering, you stop seeing pain as a punishment and start perceiving it as an opportunity for transformation. You develop resilience because you understand that every challenge serves a purpose. You feel more connected to life because you are no longer trapped in the role of a victim. Purpose is what turns suffering into wisdom and adversity into growth. When you finally discover it, you realize that you have not only moved beyond suffering, you have truly begun to live. Suffering is an inevitable part of life, but it does not have to define you. Every wound, every obstacle, and every painful moment is actually a doorway to your evolution. The goal is not to avoid suffering at all costs, but to learn how to see it through a different lens. The people who have transcended pain did not do so because they never suffered, but because they found something greater than their suffering. They discovered a purpose, learned to reinterpret their story, and took control of their lives instead of remaining trapped in the role of victims. Jung taught us that self-realization is the process of integrating all aspects of ourselves, including our pain. There is no light without shadow, no growth without challenge, and in that integration lies our true power. If today you feel that suffering is consuming you, remember this: you are not alone, and you are not trapped. Your story does not end here. Use your pain as a compass, as fuel to discover who you truly are and what you came to do in this world. In the end, the real question is not why is this happening to me, but rather, how can I use this to become the best version of myself? And when you find the answer, pain ceases to be a burden and instead becomes your greatest teacher. If you found this message valuable, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and share this video with others who might need to hear this. Let's continue growing together. Many believe they are living simply because they breathe, walk, and work. They confuse movement with direction, routine with purpose, and activity with life. Yet they fail to realize they stopped choosing long ago. They no longer decide. They merely repeat. They no longer live. They merely survive. Carl Jung taught that the greatest enemy of a fulfilled life is not failure. It is unconsciousness, that silent autopilot that numbs the mind, silences the soul, and turns days into photocopies. You are not here to be a machine of empty habits. You are here to build, to feel, to grow, to awaken each morning with clarity intention, and power. And all of that begins when you take back control of your mind and lift it from its sleep. Because living is not something that happens. It is something you choose. If you want a different life, you don't need to change everything. You just need to start being present, to make conscious choices, to take back the wheel. Because as long as you remain on autopilot, your life will be a copy. But when you awaken, your life becomes a masterpiece. Millions walk the world with empty eyes, bent backs, and minds elsewhere. They wake to an alarm they hate, obey a routine they never chose, and fall asleep with a fatigue they cannot explain. It is not physical exhaustion. It is disconnection. It is the result of living unconsciously, of repeating without questioning, of doing without feeling, of existing without truly living. And the most alarming part is that they don't even notice. They believe everything is fine because that's just how life is, because everyone else does it too. But following the crowd has never been proof of fulfillment. Sometimes it is the clearest sign that we are deeply asleep. To live on autopilot means your mind has stopped asking questions. It no longer wonders why you do what you do, or whether it makes sense, or if it's leading you toward what you truly desire. It merely acts, repeats, and reacts to stimuli like a machine. And there is no pain more silent, yet more destructive than that. The pain of watching your days pass as if they were identical. The pain of losing your sense of wonder. The pain of no longer choosing. Because when you stop choosing, someone else chooses for you. Your environment, your habits, your past story, and little by little, you become a shadow of what you could have been. Autopilot doesn't activate all at once. It's a gradual process. It begins with small surrenders. You stop reading, you stop learning, you stop questioning. You replace silence with noise, purpose with occupation, presence with distraction. And one day, without knowing how, you become an expert at avoiding yourself, filling the day with tasks to avoid feeling the void, watching screens to avoid looking within, seeking entertainment because you can't find meaning. And ironically, from the outside, you look functional. You have a job, fulfill your duties, smile in photos, but inside, the light is off. This way of living is not accidental. It's the consequence of never stopping to ask, am I truly living what I want? Because if you dared to pause, even for a moment, you'd notice the pieces that don't fit, the forgotten dreams, the repressed desires, the part of you screaming to awaken. But since you don't listen, you keep going, like everyone else, as always, until one day your body speaks for you. It stops you with illness, shocks you with loss, forces you to face what you ignored, because the soul cannot tolerate being silenced forever. Living unconsciously is easier, yes, but the easy path never leads to the summit. Comfort does not transform you. Routine does not make you vibrate. What awakens you is what challenges you, what unsettles you, what forces you to face your life with brutal honesty and say, this is not enough. You did not come into this world to repeat days. You came to build something unforgettable, something with your essence, something that makes every night worth closing your eyes and saying, this day mattered. But for that, you must awaken from your sleep. Deactivate the autopilot. Be present again. Choose again. And that choice is not theoretical, it's practical. It begins in small moments. Are you here? Or are you already thinking of what comes next? Are you listening or just waiting for your turn to speak? Are you working or merely complying? Are you loving or just avoiding being alone? The answers to those questions reveal whether you're living or merely existing. And when you start answering them consciously, something changes. Maybe not outside at first, but inside. And that inner transformation changes everything. Because when you awaken, everything you touch comes alive. Awakening is not a sudden event. It's a daily practice. It's the art of reclaiming control over your attention. Because where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is fragmented, scattered, and hijacked by notifications, urgencies, and recycled thoughts, then your life will be too. How many times have you reached the end of the day, unable to recall where your time went? How many times have you eaten without tasting, spoken without listening, worked without truly being present? That is living asleep. And though the body moves, the mind is absent. It doesn't feel, it doesn't direct, it only executes. The danger of autopilot is that it steals your life while making you believe you're accomplishing something. You check boxes, follow schedules, send messages, but you are not creating, not choosing, not feeling that your life belongs to you. It's as if you're driving a car with your eyes closed. You move, yes, but you have no idea where you're going. And worse, you no longer ask, because you've lost the habit of asking the important questions. You replace them with urgencies, with the immediate, with the trap of, I don't have time to think. Take that time back. Take that power back. Because no one can live your life for you. No one can give you a meaningful existence if you don't build it from within. And that begins with one decision: to be. To be in what you do, in what you say, in what you feel. Not as a mystical exercise, but as an act of personal leadership, as a sacred commitment with yourself. Because a present man is a powerful man, one who acts with clarity, one who doesn't wait for life to strike him before he reacts, one who leads from awareness rather than urgency. Carl Jung taught that presence is not merely being awake, but being conscious of what moves within us. Think for a moment. What part of your life have you been living without truly noticing? What routines do you repeat every day that no longer carry meaning, but you continue simply out of habit? What relationships do you maintain out of fear, inertia, or comfort, even though they no longer help you grow? What dreams have you abandoned because you lack the courage to face them again? Asking these questions hurts, but not asking them hurts more, because it means dragging along a life that no longer represents who you are. When you live on autopilot, you cease to be the author of your story and become a mere actor in someone else's script. You don't have to change everything at once. You only need to start noticing. Notice what you do. Notice how you feel. Notice what ignites you and what dims your light. From there, begin to make small but conscious decisions. Don't live by default. Live by design. Every day is a blank page, and although you cannot rewrite the past, you can decide what kind of day you want to create today. Another day like all the rest, or one that brings you closer to the man you want to become. A day that awakens you, that reactivates you, that reminds you that you are alive. Because that's what living truly means, feeling that what you do has purpose. And that purpose isn't found out there somewhere. It grows within you through presence, intention, and direction. A life without conscious direction is like rowing without a rudder. Much effort, much fatigue, but no real progress. You can stay busy all day and still feel empty. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can be achieving goals you never even wanted. Because when you live unconsciously, your inner compass fades. You start making decisions not from conviction, but imitation. You dress like the others, think like the others, act like the others, and in doing so, you lose your most valuable treasure, your authenticity, your truth, your center. But here's the good news. It's never too late to awaken. Awakening doesn't depend on age, the past, or circumstances. It depends only on one choice. The choice to look at your life with new eyes, with the courage to recognize what no longer works, what no longer belongs to you, what has been putting your soul to sleep. Because there are things that aren't wrong anymore. They're simply dead. Dead conversations, dead habits, dead goals that once made sense, but now only bind you. Holding on to what no longer vibrates with your essence is the slowest way to die while still alive. To live awake is to have the courage to make space, to release, to empty yourself so you can fill again with what truly matters. And for that, you need silence. Not external silence, that's easy, but inner silence. The one that forces you to stop and ask yourself honestly, what do I really want? Not what others expect of me, not what I'm supposed to do, but what makes me feel alive, useful, connected. And when you ask that question sincerely, it hurts, because it reveals everything you've tolerated, everything you've sold, everything you've ignored just to fit in. But it also frees you, because once you see clearly, you can never go back. Awakening isn't about changing your city, your partner, or your job. It's about changing your inner state, stepping out of unconsciousness and walking no longer by inertia, but with purpose. It's about moving from reaction to choice, from surviving to creating, from merely existing to truly living. And that requires constant awareness, because the world is designed to distract you, to numb you, to keep you busy with the urgent and distant from the important. If you don't protect your consciousness, you'll be swept away by the current of the immediate. But if you guard it and reaffirm it each day, you will reclaim your life. You will once again feel excitement for the smallest things. He will once again look people in the eyes. He will once again breathe with presence. He will once again feel that his actions have meaning. And that is the first symptom of awakening. When every small gesture carries intention. When he rises in the morning and doesn't just start the day, but leads it. When he stops watching the clock and starts watching his purpose. Because an awakened man doesn't live by habit, he lives by decision. And that decision, if sustained, leads to an extraordinary life. Not perfect, not easy, but real, full, and his own. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to adapt, and that can be a blessing or a trap. Because when it adapts too much to the noise, it stops hearing the silence. When it adapts to chaos, it begins to believe that disorder is normal. When it adapts to living on autopilot, it assumes there is no other way to live. And that is the most dangerous part, not realizing that one is asleep. Because if at least he knew, he would do something. But the autopilot is subtle, comfortable, familiar. It convinces him that this grey life is all there is. And it's not. Most men don't live. They manage themselves. They move like another cog in the system, doing what's expected, fulfilling what's required, but never stopping to ask if what they do truly matters. They don't question whether their energy is being spent on what truly counts. So their body is in one place, but their mind is elsewhere. They do one thing while thinking of the next, and that repetition disconnects them day by day, divides them, fragments them, until one day they look in the mirror and no longer know who they are. That disconnection has a high cost, not only emotional, but physical. When you live without direction, your body feels it, because the mind was never designed to operate without purpose. When there is no why, everything becomes heavier. The fatigue isn't from the body, it's from the soul. Stress isn't just about responsibility, it's about the absence of meaning. It's not that you have too much to do, it's that you no longer know why you're doing it. And that uncertainty wears you down, sickens you, breaks you, first inside, then outside. That's why it's essential to return to the basics, to breathe, to observe, to feel, to reconnect. Not with the world, but with yourself, with your values, your goals, your essence. Because when you are truly present, everything changes. The simplest conversation becomes meaningful. The most modest meal becomes sacred. The most ordinary moment becomes memorable. Not because the external has changed, but because you have returned. You have returned to inhabit your own life. And in this hyper-accelerated world, that alone is an act of rebellion. And if this message resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not just to receive more content, but to reaffirm your choice, to live with intention, to move beyond chronic distraction, to build a life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels good on the inside. And I want you to leave a comment answering this question. What daily habit do you want to transform, to stop living on autopilot? Write it down. Read it. Repeat it. Because what you declare with conviction begins to manifest. Remember, you don't need to do everything perfectly. You only need to be present. And presence doesn't require effort. It requires decision. The decision to stop living asleep. The decision to awaken right here, right now. Because this very moment, if truly chosen, can be the first of a completely different life. A real life. A life of purpose, connection, and direction. The life you deserve to live. The life you still have time to create. Living awake is not a trend. It's a necessity. It's what separates those who merely pass through life from those who truly live it. Because time alone does not teach. Only time that is well used, well focused, well lived, transforms. And that is only possible when you are present. Not physically present, anyone can do that, but truly present. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Able to see what you do and know why you do it. Able to feel what you feel without escaping, without numbing, without distracting yourself. That presence is not a luxury. It's the root of fulfillment. And yet, the world pushes you in the opposite direction. It sells you urgency. It screams that you must go faster, higher, further. But it never asks if what you're chasing has meaning for you. It never invites you to stop, to look, to reflect. Because if you did, if you truly asked where you are going, you might realize you're running toward a place you never chose, chasing goals that don't fulfill you, wasting your life on things that don't even matter. And when you see that truth face to face, everything changes. That's where true leadership begins, in the conscious choice of your goals. Not the ones your environment celebrates, not the ones your ego demands, but the ones your soul recognizes as true. Because when you pursue something aligned with your essence, you don't need motivation, only connection. That goal calls you, invites you, awakens you, and the path toward it ceases to be an obligation and becomes a privilege, a training, a daily construction that transforms you into someone new. That only happens when you have the courage to question everything, to look at your calendar and ask, is this really how I want to spend my time? To look at your relationships and ask, am I here by choice or by habit? To look at your thoughts and ask, who is steering my mind? Me or my unconscious patterns? The answers may hurt, but behind that pain lies your freedom. Because nothing changes outside until something changes inside. And nothing changes within until you start paying attention. Attention is the doorway to a different life, one with less noise and more clarity, less struggle and more flow, less exhaustion and more fulfillment. But that life doesn't appear on its own. It is built day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice. And every time you decide to be present, even for an instant, you break the pattern of autopilot. You take back control. You remember that you are alive. And that remembrance, if you honor it, can change your entire life. Presence is not just a mental exercise. It is a way of standing before life itself. It is the decision not to let the days drag you along, not to allow routine to dull your senses. It is the conscious choice to build a life that feels truly yours, not an echo of others, not a copy of someone else's script, but a genuine reflection of what you value, desire, and believe. Because as Carl Jung would say, living awake is not the hard part. The hard part is staying asleep once you have seen what is possible. You don't need more time. What you need is to awaken to the time you already have. Every single day contains everything necessary for you to grow, evolve, and transform, if you live it with intention. The problem is that most people don't live their day. They endure it, drag it, repeat it, let it slip by as if it were just another one, unaware that each day is unique, unrepeatable, and irreplaceable. How many times have you reached the end of a week without knowing where it went? How many days have simply passed without anything truly happening within you? That isn't a flaw in the calendar. It's a sign that your attention has been hijacked by your phone, by the news, by other people's urgencies, by the automatic thoughts you've been recycling for years. And when your attention is fragmented, your life becomes fragmented too. That's why there are men who, even having everything, still feel empty. It isn't a lack of resources. It's a lack of presence. It's not external scarcity. It's internal disconnection. Because fulfillment isn't achieved by accumulating things. It's built by connecting with what you already possess. And that connection only occurs when you are awake. Being awake is not a permanent state. It's a daily exercise. It's returning again and again to the present, to this moment, this breath, this action. And yes, it's difficult at first because you're used to rushing, multitasking, and constantly thinking about what's next. But when you start to slow down, even for a few minutes, something shifts. You begin to notice, to feel, to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, between what's noisy and what's true. And that, though it may seem small, is the beginning of profound transformation. To live awake means to have the courage to fully inhabit your own life, not to escape, not to lie to yourself, but to look clearly at what you do, what you allow, and what you postpone. Not from guilt, but from responsibility. Because guilt paralyzes you, but responsibility liberates you. It returns the wheel to your hands. It reminds you that no matter what happened before, today you can choose differently. Today you can decide to speak with intention, to eat with awareness, to work with direction, to love with presence, to breathe with gratitude. And none of this requires more time. It only requires consciousness. You may think it's too late, that too much time has passed, that you are too deep in your routine to change. But listen carefully. It is never too late to awaken. The moment you decide to live with awareness, that is the moment you stop being lost. And when you stop being lost, you begin to find yourself, to build yourself, to rise. Because the person who inhabits their life with presence inevitably begins to direct it with power, with clarity, with vision. And that power does not come from the outside. It comes from the simple act of being here, of no longer running away, of no longer existing on autopilot, of choosing each day to live with purpose. And the most beautiful part is that you don't need to do it perfectly. You only need to remember that you are alive, that this moment matters, that every gesture can be sacred if done with awareness, and that every step counts when it is taken awake. Because the life you want isn't waiting somewhere ahead of you. It's hidden in what you do now, in how you do it, in the quality of your presence. And that quality can't be bought. It can't be learned through theory. It must be practiced, cultivated, and honored. Every day, every moment, every decision. A man can spend decades believing he is living when, in truth, he is merely functioning. He wakes up, works, fulfills duties, pays bills, and repeats. He has goals, but no purpose, activities, but no direction, moments of joy, but not a lasting sense of fulfillment. And do you know why? Because he has mistaken being active for being alive. But a machine is active too. A machine also fulfills tasks. The difference between an awakened man and an automatic one is that the first chooses, while the second merely reacts. One creates, the other obeys. And obedience to the autopilot doesn't seem dangerous until the years pass, until he looks back and can't find a single moment that truly defined him, until he realizes the most productive years of his life were lived for others, for systems he never questioned, for needs that were never his. And when that realization arrives, it's not the past that hurts. It's the awareness that comes too late. It's the pain of knowing he slept through the very moments when he should have been most awake, when he should have chosen more firmly, when he should have said no with more courage and yes with more conviction. But you still have time, and that time, though invisible, is your greatest treasure. Not because you can do 1,000 things, but because you can be fully present in whatever you do. You can choose what you want to live and how you want to live it. You can decide which habits to nurture and which to let die. You can stop repeating what numbs you and begin practicing what ignites you. Because living awake is no coincidence. It is a conscious practice of disobeying the automatic and returning to what is essential. And that essential truth is not complicated. It's everywhere. In your breath, in your ability to listen, in your capacity to observe without judgment, in the silence that doesn't disturb but restores order. Yet to reach that place, you must pause. You must choose not to be distracted, not to fill every space, not to rush, because the faster you go, the farther you drift from what truly matters. And what matters doesn't shout, doesn't compete. It waits. It waits for you to be ready to listen. It waits for you to face your life directly, without excuses, without decoration, without recycled stories. Just you and your truth. That truth might hurt. It may show you how much time you've wasted, how much potential you've left unused, how many moments you've lost by not being fully present. But it can also set you free, because truth doesn't arrive to punish. It arrives to awaken, to remind you that you can still change your path, that you can still live with awareness, that you can stop pretending and start creating. And when you do, when you return to inhabit yourself fully, everything in your life begins to change. Not because the world is different, but because now you are present, now you choose, now you live. To live consciously is to turn on a light in a room that has been dim for years. At first, it blinds you, unsettles you, exposes the corners you'd rather not see, the decisions you avoided, the conversations you postponed, the dreams you buried beneath excuses. But that initial discomfort is necessary because you cannot put in order what you refuse to see. You cannot heal what you will not face. You cannot create something new upon a life lived on autopilot. And that is why many never awaken, because they are unwilling to pass through the clarity that discomfort brings. They prefer to remain asleep, because in sleep there is no judgment, no demand, no responsibility, only repetition. But you are not one of them. You have already felt the unease of living without direction. You've already experienced what it means to move quickly but aimlessly. You already know the feeling of reaching nightfall with the sense that the day passed through you instead of you passing through the day. And that doesn't condemn you, it awakens you. Because there is something powerful in having touched the bottom of your own mind. It leaves you without excuses. It forces you to look at the truth without filters. And when a person looks at their life with total honesty, something miraculous happens. They stop negotiating with what matters. They stop postponing the essential. They stop disguising confusion as busyness. Carl Jung would say that at that moment, the self begins to emerge, the true you, the one that was never asleep, only waiting for your return. Because real change does not come from sudden motivation. It is born from exhaustion, from that exact moment when one says, no more distractions, no more noise, no more empty days, no more disconnection. And from that threshold, a different kind of force emerges, a force that doesn't scream, doesn't rush, but never gives up. It is the quiet strength of a man who has decided to return home, to return to his center, to reclaim ownership of his thoughts, his choices, his time, not with perfection, but with intention. Every time you choose presence over haste, you are building a different life. Every time you breathe deeply before reacting, you are cultivating a clearer mind. Every time you observe instead of judging, listen instead of interrupting, give thanks instead of demanding, you are deactivating the autopilot, not through grand gestures, but through small conscious acts repeated with devotion. For consciousness, as Carl Jung taught, is not something that simply appears. It is trained, cultivated, and sustained. And if you sustain it long enough, everything else begins to align. Your relationships, your goals, your energy, your peace. You do not need to find meaning in your entire life tonight. You only need to find meaning in this moment, in this action, in this decision. And if you can connect enough of these moments, lived with intention, you are creating a life lived with purpose. It doesn't matter how many times you have fallen asleep along the way. It doesn't matter how many times you've been lost in the noise. What matters is that today you decided to return. That today you chose to remember who you are. That today, even for a few minutes, you are here, present, aware, alive. And that changes everything. True freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. It is being fully present in whatever you choose to do. It is not needing to escape, not living in a constant wish for the day to end, not looking at the clock in despair, waiting for a pause that never comes. Because a life that constantly seeks escape is not a life. It is mere survival. And no one came into this world just to survive. Not you. You are here to live deeply, meaningfully, with real connection. And that only becomes possible when you stop moving by inertia and start moving by choice. Think about it with brutal honesty. If you had to live this same day over and over again for years, would you be proud of what you are creating? Or would the repetition weigh you down? That question confronts you because it exposes a truth many prefer to ignore. Your life will not magically change with time. It will change when you decide to direct it differently, when you stop waiting for something new and start acting differently with what you already have. Because real transformation happens when a man changes his level of consciousness, not when the world changes in his favor. A mind on autopilot seeks stimulation, seeks distraction, seeks instant gratification, because it cannot hold stillness. But when you train yourself to be present, that emptiness disappears. It is replaced by meaning, by clarity, by a new energy that no longer needs external noise to feel alive. Because now, what you do has weight, purpose, and direction. And that inner shift transforms you entirely. You begin to see opportunities where you once saw routine. You begin to act from intention, not from obligation. And that changes everything. To be present does not mean to move slowly. It means to move awake. It means that even when the pace is fast, your mind stays connected. Your attention remains steady. You keep choosing. You keep leading. And that is the difference between a reactive man and a conscious man. One is dragged by circumstance, the other chooses his direction, regardless of the tide. And that choice, though invisible to others, becomes his strongest foundation. Because when you are connected to your purpose, you no longer need to be pushed. You become unstoppable from within. Perhaps today you still feel the echo of a life half-lived. Perhaps you still carry the exhaustion of years spent surviving instead of feeling. But today is different. Today you have clarity. Today you have tools. Today the truth stands before you. And now all you need is the commitment to remain present. Not once, but every day. Not perfectly, but with intention. Because presence is not a spiritual luxury. It is a vital necessity. It determines whether your life becomes a chain of repetitions or a conscious creation. One worth remembering. One that makes you feel alive, awake, and truly free. One day, you will stop. Perhaps because your body can no longer keep going. Perhaps because life suddenly shows you what was always there and you refuse to see. Or, with some luck, because you chose to awaken before everything collapses. And in that moment, the most honest of all, no amount of money, degrees, or applause will matter. Only one question will remain. Was I truly present in my life? Did I live it? Did I direct it? Or did I simply let it pass me by? Many people die with a full schedule and an empty soul. They spent their best years meeting expectations they never chose, maintaining routines that drained them, pretending enthusiasm where only duty existed. And when they finally realize it, there is no going back. Not because it's too late to change, but because the time they had to build something meaningful slipped away in distractions, in fear, in procrastination disguised as logic. Do not make that mistake. Do not let your life slip away while believing you're in control. Do not confuse movement with direction. Today is the moment to face everything you've avoided. Today is the moment to silence the noise of the world and ask yourself firmly, am I truly present in my life, or am I just functioning? And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, if it hurts, if it shakes you, then congratulate yourself, because that is the first sign that something inside you wants more, that your soul no longer tolerates living half asleep, that you are ready not only to change your habits, but to change your state. from being asleep to being awake, from reacting to leading, from repeating to creating. And to create doesn't mean starting from scratch. It means being here, now, with eyes wide open, with a clear mind, and with a willing heart. It means directing your attention as if it were your most precious asset, because it is. It means no longer giving away minutes to what doesn't elevate you, no longer lending your energy to what doesn't represent you. It means that every day, no matter what happens outside, you decide to remain inside, in your center, in your truth, in your life. This is the turning point. You don't need to shout it. You don't need to announce it. You just need to sustain it. To decide that from now on, every step will carry awareness. Every action, intention, every conversation, presence. And when you do this, when you maintain it, the world may not change immediately, but you will. And because you are the one directing your world, everything else will begin to align. Do not allow your story to end without being written by you. Do not let autopilot drive the greatest masterpiece you possess, your existence. Awaken. Remind yourself every morning that you are here for something greater than mere survival. You are here to live, to feel, to build with open eyes and a burning soul. And that life, the one you've always dreamed of, does not begin tomorrow. It begins today, in this moment, in this breath, in this decision.